Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the planning board. This is June 21st, 23. And we start the opening of the meeting by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. So please join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Those in the audience here, we have a couple of housekeeping items. We have an exit to my right, an exit in the back of the room. Don't use the elevator. Somebody will help you get down if you need it. And if you have a cell phone or any devices, if you can put it either on mute or vibrate. And with that, the planning board voluntarily continues to offer remote participation. If any member of the planning board participates remotely, votes shall be by roll call. And I don't know if it's showing up on here. If you have a computer or a smart device, the meeting ID is 754-663-912. And the phone number is 646-558-8656. And when we do open the public hearing, you'll need to hit *6 to unmute yourself, or *9 to raise your hand to say you want to be called on. So with that, I'm going to introduce the members. Starting on my right, we have the Planning Director, George Sioris.
Sorry, good evening.
And next to him, we have Liz Robidoux, Assistant Planning Director.
Good evening.
And I want to introduce somebody brand new tonight, Lisa Carvalho. Did I say that correctly?
It was close.
And coming over there, the Town Administrator's Representative, Mr. Randy Chase.
Good evening.
Full Member, Mr. Dan Haley.
Good evening.
Town Councilor, Mr. Dave Guinese.
Good evening.
Way over there, the man behind the curtain is Owen Provenger.
Good evening.
We have the Town Engineer, Mark LaRue.
Good evening.
We have Member Chris Feinhauer.
Good evening.
And we have Richard Malaby.
Good evening.
We have our Secretary, Mr. Andy Myers.
Hello.
And the gentleman up on the screen is the Vice Chair, and Dave Nelson. And I'm the Chair, John O'Connor.
He's on the beach.
He's on the beach. Look, he's getting suntanned already. Okay, with that, we're going to start off with escrow. The first escrow is project name Starbucks. The developer is Dairy Retail Management 2 LLC. Escrow account, same. Escrow type, letter of credit. Parcel ID location is 35018, 38 Crystal Avenue. Action requested. Please renew letter of credit number 100059047, drawn on Camden National Bank in the amount of $148,113.36 for the above noted project. The letter of credit has an automatic renewal provision. The expiration date shall be May 16, 2024.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Abstain? Motion passes.
Mr. Chair. If I could indulge just for this evening, can we note who made the motions in the seconds to make it a little easier for Lisa until she gets to know our voices?
The motion was Mr. Granddad, Dave Guinese. The second was Andy.
Mr. Myers, thanks.
Mr. Chair, do we need to do a roll call for that vote, since we have a member on Zoom?
Not,
No?
yeah, I did say that, didn't I? All right, we'll go on a roll call. So starting with, on the first one, which was the Starbucks, number 23-07. So starting with Randy Chase,
Yes.
Dan Healy,
Yes.
Dave Guinese,
Yes.
Mr. Feinhauer,
Yes.
Richard Malaby,
Yes.
Andy Myers.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so it's officially passed now. Next one is Aspen Dental, developer Dairy Retail Management LLC. Escrow account, same. Escrow type, letter of credit. Parcel ID 08002, 38 Manchester Road. And I want to apologize, I think I missed Mr. Nelson on that last roll call. Action requested, please renew letter of credit number 100059048. Am I doing the same one over again? Yeah, Camden National Bank in the amount of $131,207.04 for the above noted project. The letter of credit has an automatic renewal provision. The expiration date shall be July 6, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Grenice, a second by Mr. Mears. And starting with Randy Chase
Yes.
and Dan Healy,
Yes.
Dave Grenice,
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer,
Yes.
Richard Malaby,
Yes.
Andy Mears.
Yes.
Dave Nelson,
Yes.
and chair votes yes, that passes. The next one is CHI Overhead Door, North Point Construction, escrow account same, escrow type performance bond, parcel ID location 08280 10 Ashley Drive. Action requested, please establish performance bond number CTHNSU 0835622, issued by Harco Insurance Company for the above noted project in the amount of $45,470.16, with the expiration date will be June 7th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Grenice, second by Mr. Mears, starting with Mr. Chase,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mr. Grenice,
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer,
Yes.
Mr. Malaby,
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, and Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. The next one is, the project name is Denelli Estates 2, developers JAL LLC, escrow account same, escrow type performance bond, parcel ID location 11058, 19 Forest Street, action requested. Please approve release number 1 in the amount of $541,904.54 on performance bond number 012212137, issued by Ohio Casualty Insurance Company for the above noted project, and request a replacement bond in the amount of $561,174.48.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Grenice, a second by Mr. Mears. Going with Mr. Chase,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mr. Grenice.
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer.
Yes.
Mr. Malaby.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
And Dave, Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, and that one passes. We would have had this many before. The last one. Project name, AEC Office / Garage. The developer is American Excavation Corp., Seven Hills Developers. Escrow account the same, escrow type, letter of credit. Parcel ID location 31011 and 31013 at 5 and 15 Madden Road. Action requested. Please approve a final release of the letter of credit number 22413 drawn on Enterprise Bank in the amount of $22,137.51. The amount to retain is 0.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Grenice and a second by Mr. Myers and Mr. Chase.
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mr. Grenice,
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer,
Yes.
Mr. Malaby,
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. We've completed that one. Going on to the approval of minutes dated June 7th, 2023.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion by Mr. Grenice, we have a second by Mr. Myers, and starting off with Mr. Chase,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mr. Grenice.
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer.
Yes.
Mr. Malaby.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
and the chair will abstain. So it moves. On other business, we have an architectural design review under the TBOD, PID 30053, 8 East Broadway. The sign is Wayward Vesteria. Do you want to speak to that there?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, real quick, this is the, right outside here on Broadway where the antique store used to be. It's a woman's consignment shop. The owner's moving up here from Worcester, Mass. We talked to her a couple of times. Staff would recommend approval. I know it's a smaller, a friend of hers made the sign. Liz and I and Bob Mackey, I know Bev looked at it. We had no issues at our end. I know from Bob and myself and Liz. So staff would recommend approval.
Okay,
It's
any
required
comments?
in the TBOD.
Somebody wants to make a motion?
All right, Mr. Chairman, if there's no comments from anybody, I'd like to move pursuant to the Town of Derry's own ordinance, Article 12, signs, Section 165-101.5, Traditional Business Overlay District, that the proposed sign for PID 30053, 8 East Broadway meets the spirit and intent of the ordinance.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion by Mr. Renese, a second by Mr. Myers. Going down, Mr. Chase,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mr. Renese,
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer,
Yes.
Mr. Malaby,
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
The name reminds me of a rock song. Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes.
It's nice to see a new business in town.
Good luck to them when they.
Yep.
Planning Director and Chairman updates.
Just a reminder, we have a summer schedule, unless, John, we'll send a notice out, but we only have one meeting in July for the new members. That will be July the 19th. And we have one meeting in August, which will be August 2nd. And then we go back to 2 meetings in September after Labor Day. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, the only thing I have is.
One last thing, I'm sorry, the town council, July 11th, we'll be having a public hearing on the zoning amendments that we took the certain parcels in the downtown out of the TBOD and put them back in the central business. So I'll be there. Public hearing will be July 11th at the council.
And again, I just want to remind the board members that if you haven't taken any of the educational training classes, you can go on the webinar and pick some and watch them or look forward to anything coming in the summer. But I think policy and procedures require at least one training course a year. And now going into the public hearing, Hood Commons BSD LLC, PID 36017, 55 Crystal Avenue, acceptance/review, site plan, proposed Chipotle restaurant with pickup window, 2,466 square feet. And with that, will you do the introductions?
Okay, sure. Mr. Chairman, for the staff report, just for the record, for Lisa, the applicant is Hood Commons, BSD LLC. The developer is the same. The project is Chipotle Restaurant. Again, the purpose of the plan is for a 2,466 square foot Chipotle restaurant with a pickup window lane at the entrance to Hood Plaza, which is located in the general commercial district. All town departments have signed and reviewed the plan, including Conservation Commission. There is a letter waiver request from VHB Engineering, and I'll let David talk about that in a couple of minutes. No state permits required. Staff would recommend approval of the waiver and the site plan application. I'm going to introduce the engineers from VHB. David Fenstermacher is the civil engineer. Jason Plurd is the traffic engineer. We do have some folks from corporate on Zoom, so they'll be joining us on the corporate folks. And I know one of the abutters, and I'll let Steve had some questions from some of you realtor who's an abutter, and he has some questions he wants to bring forward as well. But I'll turn it over to David if you want to take the lead, David. Or Dave?
And then when you get there, reintroduce yourself and make sure the little green light's on for the microphone.
Which way? I think we're good.
Yep.
Right?
Welcome.
All right. Good evening. Dave Fenstermacher from VHB. I'm the project manager and the lead site civil engineer on the project. And tonight I'll have Jason Plord with me, who did the traffic study. On the Zoom, I think, Owen, you can see who's on the Zoom, right? So we have Dan Radman from Chipotle, Stephen Imbergia, I've never asked him how to say his name, who's representing Madison, and Chris Lasky, who's going to be on from Lingle Design. And what we're going to do, we're just going to give you a brief overview tonight. I'll go over the plans. Jason will give a little overview of the traffic, and Chris will dig into the design. Just a quick agenda. I know this looks like a lot of stuff, but it's more of 12 slides that we're just going to walk through the project. Just from a timeline review standpoint, we were in front of the ZBA about a year ago, looking for setback relief from the building to the wetland, and we received that approval last year. Then we worked on the project with the team, with Chipotle, came up with our preferred concept and put that in for our TDRC submittal back in February. We went to the Conservation Commission. I did have a March Highway Safety Committee meeting as well, number one. So we received comments from those. We then updated the TRC package. Prior to resubmitting that, we went back to Concom, showed them the changes. They were happy with those. And we went back to Highway Safety Committee again, really to focus on, when we walked through this, the entrance off of Crystal Ave that was out there today and restricting that. And then we submitted our site plan last month. We received the Wright Pierce comments. I have to say that we received those, reviewed them. They're pretty straightforward. There's some good comments related to further detail that were needed, some clarifications. We don't foresee any issues with being able to address those. And then tonight, finally here. So you can see it was a long road, making sure that we were getting through each of the components, and thanks to George, Liz, and Mark for multiple other calls and meetings along the way to get to the plan that we put in front of you tonight. So just for some context, this is the Hoods Common shopping center. Pretty large, but you can see I put the star in. We're really looking at this area that's right up against Crystal Ave, and formerly a gas station. I think maybe 15 or so years ago that was taken down. So that's just been an open lot. So overall, Crystal Ave the 55 Crystal Ave is about 23 acres. As I mentioned, there is that. If you went out there today, you'd see a big curb cut with Jersey barriers that used to access the gas station. But the main entrance there is the Hoods Common Drive, and then the overall shopping center can be then accessed multiple ways along Pinkerton Street. And we did mention there was a wetland conservation district, because there is a portion of the right side of the project where there was some existing wetlands that, due to the constraints out there in the layout, we had a minor impact out there. So as I said, we're focusing really on about 0.9 acres out front and between the two banks along that entrance. Under proposed conditions, we're proposing about a 2,400 square foot Chipotle with pickup lane. And when we talk about pickup lane, this isn't a drive-through where there's a screen and you order. This is a mobile order. You come and pick it up. Jason will get into a little bit more of the details on that one. As a dad of 4, I know I really appreciate these types of facilities where you can just go and pick up dinner. We are showing 26 parking spaces. There's a parking field in the back, because people are going to be entering and parking out in the back, with 2 ADA spaces. We did note there's a waiver request for the parking. We had a letter that Chipotle pulled together and provided that, for this type of use, that's around the amount of parking that they need operationally. Obviously, this is part of a larger shopping center with lots of parking. We don't foresee overflow parking being an issue, but what we want to do is just to keep it clean, ask for a waiver to get to the requirement to what's really needed operationally for the project. And as I mentioned, we had a couple of meetings with the Highway Safety Committee, and that really focused on us wanting to, from a safety standpoint, really closing down that entrance off of the standalone entrance off of Crystal Ave. We originally wanted to propose a right in there. There were concerns from the highway team, police, and fire about the proximity of that to the Hood Commons main drive. So working with the project team, what we ended up is, because we really needed this access for deliveries and trash pickup and things like that, is just having a restricted entrance for service vehicles only. So, and those are typically coming off peak. So that would be a, signed entrance, do not enter, service vehicles only. And really the main entrance, access and circulation will be through the main entrance that's there, up behind, and then you can enter, put those orange arrows in. You can either enter the pickup lane or you're parking in that main field. And then for ADA parking, you'll need to get to the front of the store. So they have, an accessible route to the front door. We did show an enclosed dumpster area. That's the orange one there. Again, that's another waiver request that we noted where it needs to be, per the regs, 25 feet. Again, we're dealing with a pretty constricted site here. So we're asking for 17, to get that reduced to 17 feet. But as you'll see in the details, this isn't a chain link. This is a CMU block enclosure. Also, we're adding, curb here today where there's some areas where, sheet flow previously was going to the wetland, where this will be curbed and any spills and things like that would be contained on the site. And then, as I mentioned, there's less than 3,000 square feet of wetlands. That has been approved by the Conservation Commission. They actually co-signed our application to DES that's been submitted for a minimal impact to the state. We're anticipating that to be approved over the next month or so. We did have a meeting with DES to discuss the project prior to that. For utilities, there's water, sewer, and power right along Crystal Ave. We did go out there and do some test pits to locate. There was a stub that was there previously for sewer for the, I assume for the gas station. We were able to locate that and connect to that. And there's a water line also on our side of Crystal Ave. So the good thing is we don't need to cut into Crystal Ave or to do any connections to the utilities. And we're working with the utility company on the power. There is gas in Pinkerton. It's not along Crystal, so there's going to be a connection through the Hood's Commons property to connect the gas to Pinkerton. And just to kind of go over a little bit of operation overview, I mentioned the pickup lane available to those customers who have placed a mobile order. Looks like, based on the data we had, average of 2 vehicles is observed at the pickup lane. Since you don't have to pick up the order from the menu board, it's a pretty quick turnaround and more efficient than a fast food restaurant. So hours of operation, 10:45 in the morning to 10 p.m. The pickup lanes open around the same time. Trash pickup is typically 2 to 3 times a week. And the delivery schedule, off hours, typically 3 to 4 times a week. There's no freezers because all the food is fresh. It's just refrigerated only. And again, that's why we really needed that access up front. And then, maintenance and cleanup protocol. So the store crew and employees are responsible for keeping the garbage cans, both interior and exterior, clean and empty. They bring all the trash to the main trash enclosure. They're also responsible for keeping the site parking lot free of garbage. Hood Commons, so that's for Chipotle. Hood Commons then, as the property owner, is responsible for maintaining the building, the structure of the roof, and the landscaping. And the Chipotle team will take care of all other aspects of maintenance, including snow plowing. For stormwater management, not often that we work on projects where there's a net decrease in impervious, which is great. We added green space out here. We were able to add a detention space in some of the green area with a subsurface recharge trench. When we went out to do the test pits for the sewer connection, we also went out there and popped some items for the stormwater, and based on some record plans Mark found and discovered there was an existing recharge system that was out there. There was some put in previously, so we adjusted our project to connect to that, to utilize that. And we have a erosion control plan, pretty in-depth for the construction purposes. And so under today's conditions, there's portions of the site just sheet flow, untreated into the wetland. So what we're doing, we're curbing things, we're bringing things to catch basins with sumps prior, and then a little bit of, sediment control prior to discharge into the wetlands. And we tried to maintain the existing outlets to the max extent practicable that's going to the wetland now. In terms of site lighting, not a lot to see in this plan other than, we performed a photometric study to show that we're in compliance with the town standards. And I'll just let Jason just do a brief overview of the traffic.
Good evening, Jason Plord with VHB. So what we had done was we had met early on in February with town staff just to make sure that we were going to be including any specific information that may be deemed necessary for the traffic evaluation. And the number one thing was how much traffic is the site going to be generating and how are the operations of the Chipotle lane. That's how they refer to it. The pickup lane is a Chipotle lane. I had never heard of one of these before, so we did some research. There was a study that was done at 6 existing Chipotle restaurants, 2 out in California, 1 in Massachusetts, 1 in Connecticut, and 2 out in Ohio. And based on that information, so we did not prepare that study, but we used that information because it was collected at existing locations throughout the country in 2022. So, you think about it, and people are really more into staying in their cars, especially during the pandemic time period, that you would think that there would be more cars and more customers using the pickup lane. So I think that, at least from that perspective, I feel comfortable with the information that was provided. And from those 6 sites, there was quite a bit of data that was provided. And on average, they showed that there was a queue of 2 cars. So how that operation works out is that you don't call up, you don't sit there and order at a menu board or anything like that. You have to actually make your orders through a mobile application. And then you go through the pickup lane and you pick up your food. So you cannot order at the drive-through. It's not a true drive-through, it's just a pickup lane, and that's all that it is. So the findings of that other study showed that the operations of this Chipotle lane is actually more efficient than a typical fast food restaurant with a drive-through window, because you're not ordering while you're sitting there in line. You're not waiting for your meal to be prepared, because it's already prepared by the time you get there to pick it up. So I thought that was a pretty unique and kind of neat situation. I'd definitely use one of these if it was out in the Milford area, but unfortunately, we don't have one out there yet. So, based on the information, the town has guidelines for drive-through windows that we need to be able to provide at least queuing for 6 vehicles. Based on the site layout, we have enough room to be able to accommodate 10 cars that would be parked there or waiting in line. But again, based on the 6 existing sites that were counted, on average, there was a queue of 2 vehicles. So, at least based on that data, it's showing us that this drive-through area and it meeting the town regulations would be able to be satisfactorily accommodating the proposed condition. For the trip generation, we used the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation information. We used a fast food restaurant to be able to generate the traffic for this type of development. And then based on that information, we compared that to a general standard that ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineers, and New Hampshire DOT has. And that is that if you are going to be generating and sending 100 vehicles per hour through an intersection, you might have a noticeable impact. What does a noticeable impact mean? It means that you're going to be increasing delays, you could be increasing queuing out on roadways. You might have to do some improvements, and that could be changing traffic control from an unsignalized to a signalized or a roundabout. It may mean you have to do shovel in the ground improvements, where you might have to put in turn lanes. So a lot of that information, again, it's just a guideline, but that information has been studied and adopted by New Hampshire DOT as a guideline. In this situation, we're not generating that amount of traffic. We do have 3 different types of trips that we're looking at. We have, and this is all based on ITE methodologies. We have some cars that are going to be coming to the site and might be visiting one of the other uses within Hood Commons. We have other cars that are already on the roadway that are going to be turning in and then turning out. And then we're going to have new cars that are coming to the area that wouldn't normally be here in the first place. So those 3 different types of vehicle trips were accounted for within our traffic study. and we're not hitting that 100 vehicle per hour threshold. The methodologies are all based on ITE and New Hampshire DOT standards and methodologies. So ultimately, what it all comes down to is that the proposed development is going to result in negligible impact based on the ITE methodologies and the New Hampshire DOT standards.
Great, thanks, Jason. I'm going to have Chris, who is zooming in, talk about the architecture. So I don't know if he needs to do something to get rights to speak. Okay, great.
All right, so the first slide is a reference of the neighboring buildings that are adjacent to the property that we included for reference. This is a slide that shows the exterior finishes of what we're proposing. This is a EFIS building that's got two medium gray tones. The top one is a much lighter tone, but it is a gray. The bottom is a medium gray. The top projects out slightly, about 4 inches from the lower band. The entrance to the front and the rear both have metal canopies that have some subtle lighting below the canopies to help highlight it, but it's not anything that would be obtrusive. There's no wall packs or anything else on the building to project onto the building. All the lighting is done with the site lighting nearby. You can go to the next slide. And this is a reference of an existing building that would be using the same finishes as what we're proposing for Derry. The only difference here is this building does not have the front entrance canopy. And then this final slide is just a elevation that shows the same information as the isometric drawings, the renderings, that just goes into the detail of the various colors, the lighter tones on the top of the building, the medium gray tone on the bottom, and it references the proposed signage that would be on the 3 elevations.
Great, thanks, Chris. And as I mentioned, we are adding green space to this project. There's a pretty detailed, enhanced landscaping plan. Again, we presented this to Conservation Commission. They provided some feedback, but as you can see, I guess the real big one here is that front door where we had the wide open space with the Jersey barriers is now, a more beautified area, and landscaping along the entrance, and really maintaining that 10-foot buffer between us and the property to the south. So I won't get into the details of the plantings, but that's all in the package. So I think that is an overview of all the site. And George, if you want me to go through the waiver request prior to questions, or how do you want to?
Yeah, why don't you explain that for the record? Just
Okay.
And then they'll vote on it later, but just for the record, go through the waivers, please.
So for section 170.29K, this relates to the minimum pipe sizing of 12 inches in diameter and the minimum depth of cover of 3 feet. Again, we're dealing with an existing site with constraints that we needed to tie into. So for the most part, we're meeting the 3 feet cover, but there are portions of the site where we are under 3 feet. And I think that was part of the Wright Pierce review where they mentioned it was a reasonable request. Our second one was section 170.63.4.J that relates to the parking requirements. Again, we attached a letter from Chipotle regarding their specific operational needs, but what we were requesting here is instead of the 1 per 3, we were just requesting a waiver for what's needed for the operational uses of the project. We have the section 170.67B1, and that relates to the setback of the trash area. As I mentioned, we were at 25 feet requirement. We're showing 17. However, we're incorporating a CMU block wall that's 7.5 feet to enclose that area. And then the last one relates to 170.64A3 that has to do with the open space of the area of the lot. So we're dealing with the overall Hood Commons lot. There's an existing green space of about 28%. The requirement is 1/3, so 33%. We're just asking for a waiver because that's an existing non-conformance that we're actually improving. So that covers the 4 waiver requests that we have tonight. And I believe that Wright Pierce addressed each of those in the letter as the status of how reasonable they are of request.
And that completes your presentation?
Yes, sir. Yep.
With that, we have to accept
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept jurisdiction. I move to accept jurisdiction of the site plan before the board for Hood Commons PSD LLC PID 360-1755 Crystal Ave.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Grenice, a second by Mr. Myers. And starting with Randy Chase.
Yes.
Mr. Healy.
Yes.
Mr. Grenice.
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer.
Yes.
Mr. Malaby.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
And chair votes yes. So we've accepted jurisdiction.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to determine of regional impact pursuant to RSA 36:56. The board finds the proposal as presented at this time meets the definition of a development of regional impact.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Grenice,
Second.
and we have a second by Mr. Myers. And we start off with Randy.
No, this is a small local project, and I do not believe it meets any of the definitions for regional impact.
And Mr. Healy,
No.
Mr. Grenice,
No, for the same reasons.
Mr. Feinauer,
No for the same reasons.
Mr. Malaby,
No, for the same reasons as Mr. Chase.
Mr. Myers,
No, same reasons.
Mr. Nelson,
No regional impact.
and the chair goes along with everybody else regarding making that unanimous.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to open a public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Grenice, a second by Mr. Myers, to open the public hearing. Starting with Mr. Nelson,
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Chase,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mr. Grenice.
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer,
Yes.
Mr. Malaby,
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. The public hearing is now open. Anybody that's calling in that needs to be recognized, that's *6 to toggle your mute or unmute, or *9 to raise your hand that you want to be recognized. So with that, is there anybody wishing to
Probably.
have come to the public hearing? So please state your name and your address. And whatever questions you have, make sure that the engineers over there are taking notes. And once you complete it, then ask you to step back down, then they'll come back up and respond.
Okay, sounds good. My name's Steve Trefethan. I'm an abutter at 43.5 Crystal. I own 6.24 acres on Crystal, and out of that, 2 acres are wetlands. All of our wetlands kind of tied together right behind the Enterprise Bank, kind of where everybody's property lines, Shaw's, the Enterprise, mine, they all kind of interject right behind there to a point, and then they vary from different property lines. So several topics I want to talk about. I did, as everybody knows, I sent an email, but I fine-tuned it. I hadn't had time to look at the plans then, but I have looked at them a little bit more. So I have 4 areas or 5 areas of some concern and some questions that need to be answered. And maybe I could start with Mr. Mark LaRue. As far as the retention ponds, are those retention ponds dumping right out onto the wetlands?
Once you completed your thing, then I'll have them respond back, so it's everything at the same time.
I'm sorry?
Once you complete your questioning, then I'll
I
have
have a lot of
after
questions, so.
everything. Pardon me?
I have a lot of, I have a lot of questions, so do you want me to go through this whole list of questions and then everybody's going to respond for a free-for-all? I don't know if you're going to get that done like that. This might be a better,
Are the questions relevant?
very relevant. Oh, yeah, lots of relevant. Yeah.
I mean, you said you were a direct abutter. You're not necessarily a direct abutter, though.
My wetlands, all the wetlands.
Not your wetlands, that's the China.
I'm sorry? Our wetlands are all
China,
affected.
China Castleton owns
Yeah,
that
our wetlands
property.
they're all the same set of wetlands. They don't have a fence or a rock wall that holds them. whatever happens here.
Let's continue on. Ask him a question,
Yeah,
he'll respond.
I mean, if I go through it this way, it'll be faster and we can.
Just
and then
don't
they
be
can-
redundant, okay?
I don't plan on it. Thank you. So, Mr. LaRue, so the retention ponds, do they, what I'm seeing, do they dump straight into the wetlands? Is that what I'm seeing? They retain and come out the little block wall they're building?
It's not a detention pond per se.
Okay,
It's a bioretention trench
Yep.
that the engineer designed. It's designed to clear the water prior to release into the outlet.
And this did go through conservation already, and it stayed in New Hampshire DES, correct?
There's no AOT on this project because
Okay.
it's under 100,000 square feet, but the engineer designed it according to the standard that the AOT would expect to be designed because our regulations mirror that.
Okay, good.
so my question would be on the project we just built right behind it, our discharged opposite of the wetlands and then goes along a trench and then through the grass and then comes back down again.
This
Is
is,
there a difference
this
in-
is the same thing, except there's not a pond per se.
So it's filtered somehow before it goes out into the wetlands?
Yeah, bioretention is set up in different levels of media, stone
Okay.
and gravel and sand and things, and that filters through a pipe underneath the actual detention pond. It's called a bioretention swale. It's not really a pond, but they make ponds like that now too.
Okay, that was my question. It was different than what I had, so I had
Yep.
questions. Well, that ends that. Try to do these one at a time and we can move along. The snow removal. So I watched the Conservation Committee's meetings, and it seems, I don't know is there still snow storage at the front of the property and at the back of the property, or did it move to the back? I thought
It's shown on the prints, it's on the back of
Well-
the property.
it's on the back, it's all on the back of the property now,
Yeah, towards TRC.
towards the ATM or
Yeah,
whatever.
the ATM down in that
Yeah.
area.
So, again, I had to do, whatever, the plans weren't, I'm just getting familiar with them. So and somebody can answer this, so maybe you'll find it in the plans, or they can answer it. So what I'm seeing is the building about 110 feet off of Crystal Ave from the plan? I'm rounding off the
They'll
number.
have to answer that when they get back up here.
All right. So what I'm seeing is the building is 110 feet off of Crystal Ave, and the building's approximately 75 feet long. Then I see where that lane goes up to the dumpster, and it appears if you went from the back of the building, the beginning of the dumpster would be another 30 feet. And then the dumpster pad is 14 feet. So what I'm seeing is where are they gonna put the snow in the front? And you're gonna have to clean the entrance off Crystal Ave where all the salt is. If you're gonna push that back 200 and something feet before you even get past the dumpster, what is gonna happen to the wings of the snow? When you get down that side of the building, approximately on a 75-foot building, probably 40 feet down the side is a door to go in there. You're not gonna push it towards the door or on that sidewalk, I'm sure. So if you push it to the right, now, again, they can answer all these questions. I'll try to put some measurements to them. I believe that the wetlands start about 125 feet off of Crystal Ave. There's a 3-foot drop or 2.5-foot drop, and then there's the same drop all the way down, basically. So they're going to go, at the building, if it's 110, I'm guessing, and again, they can clarify this, I did what I could off the plan. The building starts at 110 feet back, and the wetlands on the right side is 125 feet. 15 feet into the building, they're now at the wetlands. How will they wing the snow at 2 inches an hour to either block the door and block the building, or how will it not go in the wetlands with the rock salt from Crystal, because you're going to have it? You're not going to stop the town from salting. And then they're going to go 220 feet till they get on the other side of the dumpster, and then somewhere back there's going to be a snow pile in the back, which I don't know how many more feet that is. And if you're getting and I know because I own a lot of properties and we plow snow, we plow it in-house and out. Even if you turn your blade to the left and you're getting 2 inches an hour, which we get that a lot, the snow still goes off to the other side of your blade. That's a big issue. But how you could do that at 225 feet, I'd like to know. Even with those payloaders, that's not so simple. So that is my question on the measurements. Are they correct? Why is there no snow? I know that, I listened to conservation. They mentioned there was no snow storage. No, they didn't, they preferred no snow storage on the front. I don't understand why, because I think even with snow storage in the front, you're never pushing the snow 200 and something feet to get past the dumpster, put it in the back without getting it in the wetlands. Now, since they'll come up and answer the questions on the measurements, and then maybe I'll get up again. Okay, so that was the snow, and then of course, I understand there's gonna be, what it looks like to me, is that they're gonna put a block wall to retain the parking lot and the fill up 6 inches or so higher than the parking lot that's there, or they're gonna, if they're gonna pave it, then it may be higher than that, but it's gonna have a 6-inch curb from what I've seen, maybe I'm wrong. And then there's gonna be a chain link fence coming up, going down the rest of the parking lot, there. So even with that, again, it's the same question. There's a 6-inch curb when you're plowing snow on that long stretch where they have the 26 spots. Is that gonna be enough to stop snow from going over that sidewalk, that curb, what looks to be like a 3 to 4 foot sidewalk, where you have the guardrail and the chain link fence? The chain link fence won't stop the snow. So that is another question and another concern. So how do we keep the salt and the snow out of the wetlands? Now, the other question I have, and maybe somebody up here can answer it, because I haven't seen it, I couldn't find it on the plan. I know, and you must know because they're having a waiver for their parking sites, for their parking spaces. I think I count maybe around 18 patron seats outside of the restaurant, but I don't know how many is seating inside of the restaurant, or even if it has seats. Now, maybe that's just me, but does anybody have a total of?
He's making notes, so
Okay.
he'll get back to you.
Yeah, so if I can get the parking the seating calculations for that also, just so I can understand what's going on. Now, I'll talk about this only because I know it. I also abut the back of Hood, and I abut, you know, our wetlands all go together, and I'm on the right side of the Chipotle. So recently at the Hood Plaza, on the side, closer to my back end by the Hood School, you know, the Pinkerton kids were hanging out there, 20, 30, 40, whatever they are, parking. Somebody must have called the police or somebody, they disappeared. They moved out. I don't know why, but I know sometimes they get a little, but that's kids, whatever.
That's not relevant, can you move on?
John, this is all pertinent and important.
No,
Unless
it's
you
not.
want to be,
We're not talking about the back of the lot. We're talking
I know,
about
but
in the front.
yeah, but
No,
let
we're
me
talking about
finish.
what's in the front,
I don't know why I can't finish.
because we want to talk
He's the
to what's
chairman.
germane to this plan.
All right, well, this goes toward the plan. The kids have moved over.
It's not, it doesn't go to the plan, move on.
All right, well, yeah, it does, so I'll start.
No, it doesn't. Move
I'll
on.
start from the end. I'm gonna move on, but I want to finish what I have to say. If you don't want me to get up here and speak with my wetlands right there, say so now.
We're
and I'll
not your
leave.
wetlands. Let's move on.
All right, so you have maybe 3,000 kids at Pinkerton that are gonna come by to this Chipotle. I don't know what it is in cars, 6,
That'll
7.
make them happy.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. 600-700 cars with kids and all that. So, up till now, they've been kind of deterred from hanging around, and so I'm gonna wanna know what's gonna go on, what are they gonna do with the kids that are gonna wanna hang out in the Chipotle parking lot with their cars, because now they're buying their food and eating. It goes to that. So that's why I brought that up. It wasn't to complain about the 40 kids, or the fact that they go over by Emery Eyes now and hang out there. That's what they're gonna go somewhere, and they're kids. Now they're gonna go here. And is Chipotle gonna be able to come out and say, you know, gee, you can't hang around here, you had your sandwich an hour ago? I don't know what they're gonna do. I wanna know. Because that goes to my question of the fence and the trash in the wetlands. On the fence, you have an open fence. I would have been nice if it was a wall, or if it was something else. But I do see the kids, and I know what goes on in the back of my area from Hood Pond that comes through the wetlands where we are. You're gonna see the papers and the cups being pushed through the fence. They're going in the wetlands. So my question is, when the wetlands get littered, and they will get littered from that also, who's going to pick that up and is that a responsibility of theirs, Hood Commons, or you just leave it there, nobody walks on the cattails? I wanna know that answer. It affects my wetlands just like it does there, henceforth my question with the children. I'm trying to go fast through each subject. I wish I could just speak. But anyway, that's that. Now the dumpster. So I have some questions for the dumpster. Do they have a grease pot? Do they have a grease pot where they're a grease trap? It's not a trap, but the grease pot where they're storing the grease. And if they do, is it with the dumpster slab where most restaurants keep them, if they are? Now, my experience with Taco Bell and all the other ones that have those grease traps, or grease pots, we'll call them grease pots, when they go in the dumpster slabs, they tend to get the dumpster slabs really dirty, greasy, and it flows outside of the slabs. There's no way to stop it. So now, who cleans the slab and how do you clean it when you're so close to the wetlands? Most of the other companies pressure wash the grease off and push it wherever, but this one's right on top of the wetlands. So that's my first question on the dumpster area. My second question on the dumpster area, I noticed that you have a, let me get this out because this isn't going to be important. You have compost toters, which are usually delivered from most places that do it. We don't have many that do it here. It's done differently in Derry, delivered to like the piggy farms and all that. So what they do, I am assuming this is what they do, so I guess these are more questions for them. You know, I'm guessing it's 3 55 to 65 gallon compost toters, and in there they put their waste from lettuce, meat, and they compost this stuff down. It just sits out there and usually gets picked up weekly from these farms, or from a, I should say, let me rephrase it, from a company that picks that stuff up and then takes it to these pig farms. So my question is, are they storing these things inside, then bringing them out 12 hours before pickup, or are they just going out there and dumping all of this stuff that's going to compost and bring maggots, roaches, I hate to use these words here because I don't like them, but, you know, rats, whatever it's going to do, are they sitting out there because there's a man gate out there to walk through? And that man gate's probably going to be off the ground, and even if it isn't, those type of rodents don't have backbones. They go right under them. So are these animals going to go in there like they do now? They open barrels everywhere I go. We pick up our properties every day. But are they going to go in there? Are we going to have that problem, and is that stuff going to sit there? Now, I'm pretty sure about this, Walmart market baskets do the same thing, except they keep them in their fridges. So, and then they take them out when it's time to pick them up, and that way they don't have that issue. I don't believe McDonald's or any of the other fast food restaurants even have these. I think Chipotle does this in a lot of their restaurants, so maybe all of them, I don't know. But I don't think Chipotle has a lot of restaurants with a dumpster right on the wetlands. So that's another issue. So they can maybe answer that. Now, when they pick up dumpsters, everybody talks about the full enclosure, and everybody loves the full enclosure idea, and that's great while it's in the enclosure. But when they pick them up and they put them up in the air, the dumpster goes way up over the enclosure, the light paper products blow out. And the reason why I know that, and you guys know I've been here a long time and I have properties, the garbage I have in bags is fine. It goes right in, it's heavy. But maybe a tenant that comes home and throws their Dunkin' Donuts coffee or their English muffin from McDonald's, that paper, that cup, the wind ends up taking it and it disappears. It goes out there. So I sent a note that I think the dumpster should be somewhere else. I think it's too close to the wetlands, maybe across to the next aisle. But that is going to be an issue. You're going to have trash. And again, maybe somebody has an idea on how you get out there to clean it when it gets too bad. The other areas that around the Shaws where they go through in hoods and they walk through, we try to keep it clean because we can get to it from our dry land where they have pathways. But there, you're going to have a fence. You can't get through it. So I think just a fence there. I wish it would have been a wall. I think a fence, maybe the vinyl slats in between it, will at least keep them throwing them over. And they will do it. They're going to throw them over. There's nothing you can do, but at least they're not pushing them through. So that's my question on that. Now, the traffic. I know he mentioned the traffic, and I know it's a 10-car lane for a app to buy food. But don't forget, when the kids get out around 2 o'clock at Pinkerton, if they're all on their app and they really like Chipotle, we're going to be looking at something different. It's not the same as a regular Chipotle that's in Milford, where they don't really, the kids that's what they do. If you go to Panera, they fill the place at certain times, and you're going to have to, that's for you guys. I don't have an issue with that. That's what you do. But, okay. So let me see what else I have here. So I guess that would be my big issues, the dumpster, the trash in the wetlands. I think the dumpster's too close. I don't know about these refuge, these compost bins and stuff, but you have all these issues, and I don't know, and the grease traps, if they even have them. I think they have grease. I looked at their menu. I figured they didn't have grease, but I think they don't. Okay, so
I don't think
they don't have, I'm glad they
These
don't.
guys are no better.
Okay, good.
I go to Chipotle all the time. I've never seen fried
Okay,
food.
well, I don't know if they, I don't know what they do with their grease, then maybe they have a different idea for their grease, but anyway, that's all my questions, and that's, and maybe if I'm off on my measurements, and I can get back up and ask questions if I'm wrong, because nobody
up to
can
him.
answer the questions, so.
So, we all
That's up to
done?
the chairman.
That's what I got.
Okay, thank you. Gentlemen, if you come back up, and hopefully you've got all those questions
Is there
down.
anybody else? Because,
Oh,
is there
on-
anybody else?
online?
Mr. Chair, seeing none, rise online.
Mr.
Is Mr.,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
we have a motion by Mr. Ganesh to close the public hearing, and second by Mr. Myers. Mr. Chase,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mr. Ganesh.
Yes.
Mr. Feinhauer,
Yes.
Mr. Malavey,
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
And Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So the public hearing is now closed. Now the gentleman can come back up here. And hopefully you're able to gather all his questions.
Most of it. Do we have access to the site plan to bring up? So I'll start out with the snow storage piece, because that was, something that was discussed a lot with Concom, and we do have a snow storage plan that's included in the package. Just to confirm some of the calculations, so the building's 110 feet from the roadway. I think that was your estimate. That was a good one. So C8 is the one. I'll say of the 110 feet, 38 feet is that front island, and then 75 feet is the width of, the length of the building. So is there a way you can zoom out? So there's a few things that the existing site plan right now, site plan approval for this project, basically where the right side of our lot is all designated as snow storage space for the overall Hood Commons lot. So part of our review of this and updating the snow storage plan was to not only remove us plowing up against the wetlands, but to remove that designated area from the existing site plans. So if you could zoom out, so we've showed these highlighted areas with, so if you go to the Crystal Ave side, so we're showing some storage out front, and I'm sorry, storage out front. There's some spots on the right side, but before we get to our stormwater there, the wetlands start a little bit higher than that. And then I think the big piece is towards Hood Commons. As you get to the top, there is that shaded area, some excess parking that's there now. So what we talked about was that snow storage that was taking place at the wetlands now takes place over here. This will get away from the direct melt with the salt going into the wetland. This will melt up here, get into catch basins, be able to settle out the solids and the salt prior to any discharge. So we do have a calculation included in this plan as well related to the volume. I know there were some questions about the amount of storm. So what we did is made sure that we have the volume that we're showing is appropriate for the snow storage. In terms of how they do it, all I know is that this is something that Madison and Chipotle will be sharing with their snowplow contractors to not store on the right side. So we provide the plan, and this is something that we reviewed with them as well, and they're dedicated to meeting the intent of the plan. And then I'll just add on to Mark's piece, because he did a good job describing the bioretention. But I will say that the water flows into it. There's subsurface media that recharges, but then there is any overflow does have a little bit of green space that goes to before it even gets to the wetland there as well. So it's not a direct discharge into the wetland. We talked about the block wall and chain link fence with the snow. Again, that's covered by that plan. The number of seats, Chipotle has 36 seats inside with, I think, with 18 in that front patio area, if people want to use those. I do have, when we're talking about, the composting and things like that and the trash cleanup, I do have Dan Radman on from Chipotle, yep. I think, Dan, you're good to speak on. I think it's better coming from them because they operate these all over the country.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi there, this is Dan Radman. I'm with Chipotle. I'm the design principal and design manager for the Northeast region and in charge of this particular project. There was a question about the composting. We make allocations in our garbage enclosures for composting bins, but we only do composting where we are required by the jurisdiction. Depends on the town or the city that we're in. Some locations require us to compost, others do not. I don't think Derry requires us to compost, so we will just be going by our standard. We won't have composting bins, and we'll be going by our standard trash removal policies.
Okay. And we can remove that from the plans, the final plans.
Yep. Okay. And another comment that was raised on the grease, we do have grease, we do have fryers. That's how we do our tortilla chips. So there is a grease component to the restaurant operations. That is contained in grease caddies. That's what they're called. Basically stainless steel bins that are located. We have some that are smaller ones located in the store, and then the large container that lives in the garbage enclosure, and those are pumped out by our garbage haulers and grease reclaimers that come to the store and service the store. I can't say that there will never be a spill or nothing to clean up, but we do try to maintain a clean trash enclosure. We are fully aware that a messy or dirty trash enclosure just encourages rodents and other issues, and that's the last thing we want. We don't want our crews having to deal with that, nor any of the neighbors. So we try to maintain as clean of a facility and site as possible.
Great. And I guess, Dan, could you just address sort of your standard protocol for, trash pickup in the common area or outside of the building?
Sure.
From a day-to-day.
Day-to-day, we only have one trash bin on the exterior. That is at our patio area. We do not place trash bins or additional trash bins sort of scattered throughout the site like some other fast food companies. What we've noticed is what that does is encourages people to sit in cars and eat in the parking lot, and that's what we don't want to happen. And it encourages additional trash to be just strewn across the parking lot. So we make sure it's focused at the store entrance by the patio, which is our exterior trash bin, and then we have trash removal or trash bins on the interior. Our crews take care of those. Our crews are instructed to make sure they're cleaned and emptied and trash removed on a regular, basis every couple hours. And they also make sure that anything, during the day, during operations, if there's something on site, they'll pick it up and get rid of it, make sure it's gone. I can't speak to what the neighbor was talking about as far as, kids littering and loitering on site. There's only so many things we can do. We can easily put up signage if the town wants us to prevent loitering in the parking lot. Whether that will help or not, I can't say. We don't typically do that. We don't typically experience, even though we are a huge draw for the teenagers and the young adults in the towns, high schools and colleges specifically. We don't really experience that kind of problem where we have groups of kids hanging out in the parking lots. I haven't come across it yet. and I've been with the company for almost 9 years. What I can say though is by redeveloping this lot, what I've seen in my site visit and what I've heard from stories about what's been happening at the site, I can sympathize with what the neighbor was saying about the current situation, which is that, you know, it's an unlit large parking lot that draws, you know, kids and groups of kids for just hanging out and finding a place to be. That will change when this lot is developed. We have site lighting, it'll be illuminated, it'll be monitored. We have cameras around the building. It's not exactly a conducive environment to have groups of kids tailgating, put it that way.
Thanks, Dan. And I think just one more thing, if you could cover when the trash, you guys have a vendor that will come and do trash pickup.
Yes, so we have a regular trash pickup. We have a national company that we use as a consultant for all our trash removal contracts. They will contract for us with a local hauler who will then pick up typically for a store, and it all depends on volume. It's usually 2 to 3 times a week. They'll come in and pick up and haul the trash. If there is higher than average daily sales, and we'll know that right away, then that contract is modified and the trash pickup is more regular.
And right, what would their responsibility be in terms of, you know, if trash had spilled out during their pickup? Is that on the vendor?
If it's on, yeah, if something spills out, all of the haulers are instructed that they need to leave the place as tidy as possible with no trash around, you know, on the ground. So if something does spill out, it's their responsibility to, you know, get out of the truck and pick it up and make it go away. If anything is left there and happens to be on site and our crew happens to see it and it's during business hours when they're there, they will pick it up. We have a culture of supporting a clean and tidy restaurant and site, and all of our crew members are trained and aligned in that effort.
And I just had a question, because I think I know the answer. I just wanted to confirm. When we get into the traffic and the pickup,
yep.
If the line does get long, and you pre-ordered, you can still park and walk in and pick up your order, correct?
Yeah. Yes, you can. We actually you can, if the line's too long and you want to go in and pick up, you can do that. If you're on that line and you pull up and your order is not ready, if you come too early, for example, because the app, when you place the order, you get to select a time for pickup, either as soon as possible, and it'll tell you what that as soon as possible time is, or you can pick a later hour, like, you know, an hour from now or whatever it is. And you just have to show up at the window on that selected time. Our crews and our system is designed in such a way that your order is in the queue line, typically ready about 5 minutes before your time. So the orders are always there as much as possible.
Yeah. So I know when I go to mine and it's a busy night, when he was bringing up, you know, you might have all the kids showing up at once. You guys process it, right, so that they'll get a pickup time so that you all don't go at the same. I've ordered before and they say it's 45 minutes instead of 15 minutes. And that's how you control that, right?
We know based on our market demographic and other stores' history, we know how many orders we can run through, because we have a separate, what's called a make line. So we have a front serve line if you walk into the store, where people can queue up and order like a regular fast casual store. You know, you line up at one end, you start your order, you work your way to the cashier. That's your traditional ordering process. Second make line that's adjacent to that essentially has all these same ingredients, all the same equipment, but it's dedicated to making orders for digital pickup, whether that's at the pickup window or at the pickup shelf on the inside of the store. And when you place the order, you can specify whether you want to walk in and pick it up or you want to drive up to the window and pick it up. And there's a volume that we know we can maintain, you know, whether it's one order every 2 minutes or whatever the number is, based on that store's sales volume. And you cannot stack 10 orders at the same time for pickup. You know, they're usually stacked a couple minutes apart.
Yeah, so the smart kids will figure out you got to order at 2 o'clock and go pick it up.
The
an
smart
hour later.
kid,
Yeah.
the smart kids already know it.
Okay. So I think I was trying to keep notes quick. I think I covered just about everything that the neighbor had brought up, so.
Okay, so we're back to the board. Is there any members of the board having questions? Mr. Chase?
So, I missed where you said the oil recovery dumpster is going to be kept. Is that going to be kept in the main dumpster enclosure?
Yes, there's a large bin. It looks like an oversized suitcase, and that bin is kept. It's a stainless steel enclosure, sealed, and that is kept in the garbage enclosure out in the yard.
Okay. I am familiar with those, and I do share Mr. Trefethan's concern with that leaking into the wetlands. I have seen it before, and I would
say that we do have the enclosure, but then there's also a curbed.
correct, but it's only curved on 3 sides.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, the pavement is then curbed outside of the enclosure.
Correct, but where the truck comes in through the main gates, that should be at flush with the driveway.
Yeah.
My suggestion would be something of the fact that if you have, even on a construction site, if you have a portable fuel tank to fuel your equipment, it has to be in some kind of a enclosure so that if there was a spill or a leak, it's contained within that enclosure. And if you choose to put a roof on it, that's fine. If not, it would have to be, if rainwater collected in it, that would have to be taken care of so that if something were to happen with the dumpster, it couldn't escape.
So like a spill containment area.
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to see a spill containment for that also.
Okay. Dan, is that something we can look into for?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing I saw is on C301, your seating calculations call for 40 interior and 20 exterior, and then you had just said 36 interior and only 18 exterior.
Yeah, I think we had a conservative number when we started the plans, and as the architect has developed the plans.
Okay, so if, whichever one is correct needs to be amended on the set of plans.
Okay. Yeah, what's on the plans is the more conservative.
Okay. And one comment I would like to make to the board, although it's not ideal, the dumpster location did come up during highway safety, and different avenues were looked at and approached, especially with the preferred was to eliminate that right turn only, that second entrance in there. But everything was gone over, and that is actually was determined that that was the safest route for trucks to go in and empty the dumpster and then drive forward without any other place to have it put. It's in the middle of traffic. A truck is trying to back out with cars trying to come in, pedestrians potentially walking by, and the fact that the dumpster was as close as it was to the lot line, we felt, the Highway Safety Committee felt outweighed the safety concerns of a large truck trying to pull into a busy or potentially busy throughway for drive-through pickup and such, and try to get this dumpster picked up and moved. So that's why eventually that was the compromise we came up with for that entranceway. Service vehicles only, a dog leg, and whatever can be done to try to discourage anybody traveling south on Crystal Ave to make a left-hand turn into that entrance. But that was the reason why that was left there by Highway Safety.
And I was going to call on you because I know you're on highway safety too.
So that's the reason for that, and that was the reason for that being left in there is that was determined to be the safest avenue for emptying the dumpster.
Yeah, because I took a ride around today, and there are many restaurants, fast food restaurants.
Yeah.
And looking at all the different containers that they use, and
Yeah.
some are not so good.
Yeah. So that I hope answers that question for the board on why it was left there.
Okay.
I have a question. I'm looking at the plan right now, but early on in the presentation, I think it was the second page, not in the site plans, but in the other plans, there was a color depiction looking down at the plan and the entrance that Randall was just talking about. Can you pull that up?
Probably at the beginning.
Yeah.
Probably
I think
that
that's
guy.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, if you could blow that up a little bit. I respect that this went through the Highway Safety Committee, and I defer totally to Mr. Chase and all the other people on that committee, but I'm taking a look at this, I'm trying to understand, so the yellow arrow all the way at the bottom on the right-hand side, that designates the entrance to the
Restricted entrance, yep.
restricted entrance, okay. So your idea is that almost all of the traffic of patrons should
That
be...
is, yeah, that is used the 2 to 3 times a week for the trash, and then for
Okay.
the food deliveries off-peak.
Well, what's to stop somebody coming up from either the banks or McDonald's or wherever and coming up and go, what stops them from going in where the yellow arrow is?
Right, there are do not enter signs. I mean,
People read signs?
I know. Trust me, we went through this a bunch. Before, we were trying to restrict it as, oh, this is a right turn only for vehicles, and that's where we started out. And so what we ended up on is the kind of the twisting of the angle there, and there were some anecdotal stories from down the street where there was a similar situation with the do not enters. As I think as a driver, it's one thing to look and say like, oh, that says right turn only, I'm gonna get in there, versus a do not enter where that is a different read for a driver saying like, there must be a reason I can't go in there.
So my next question is in the back or the top where the blue arrows are.
Yep.
That is the main entrance you're hoping?
Correct.
That's
Yep.
where people will, even though the restaurant itself is in the
Yep.
bottom as we look at it, your hope is that people will come in and out where that blue arrow is. And then they'll
Correct.
come down where the yellow arrows are exactly.
That's for drive-through.
Right, for the pickup.
Yep. Pickup,
Pickup.
sorry.
Okay, and then they'll stop where you are now, then they'll come around. Isn't it easier, and how are you gonna stop traffic from just going right out that way?
Well, there's gonna be a sign there that's left turn only. I mean, that one, it's angled so that if you started to look right, it's looking down into oncoming traffic. So
All right.
that will be, and I think we have a pavement, I should
Okay.
double check. I think we have a pavement arrow.
All right, again, I defer to the Highway Safety
Yeah.
Committee, but it's not,
No, these
people
are-
don't look at signs, people don't pay attention. It's right there, that's a very confusing area. I go in and out of there frequently, and people are going into the left lane, the right lane, people are making turns. So
So
I
we're
don't know. I
hoping.
think that's confusing.
Yeah, so we'll
I
tighten
really-
it up. There's gonna be signs, there's gonna be pavement, and I think it's one of these things that, once people go here once or twice, they're gonna understand the circulation there.
My only other comment, it's only a comment. I just had eye surgery, but I can see 20/20 at this point.
Okay.
It's really hard. I'm looking at C1.01, and it's very difficult to read that. I don't think there's a regulation, but in the future,
yeah.
could engineers just kind of make it so that because I sat here and read this while we were going through all this, and it's really tough. That's all. That's my only comment. Thank
We
you.
gotta get you guys some iPads so you can zoom in on the PDFs.
I don't think so.
That's what I do with a computer at home, put it like 250%.
Town has no money.
Well, that's fine, but when we're sitting here and we're presented with this, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Chairman, but,
Yeah.
when we're sitting here listening and we have
You have a big
questions.
The big plan? You want the big plan?
No. It was just a comment that it's very difficult to read this.
I think that's a,
I'm with you, because I'm near your age, or maybe I'm older than you, and I would agree.
I don't know if you're older than me, but anyhow, that's a different subject. It's
I
just
will-
difficult
I
to
will,
read. as-
No, I think that's a good point, that if there's a requirement for half-size plans, we should recognize that
Right.
people are gonna be reading that
Thank you.
half-size.
Thank you, because
Yeah.
it's okay that we get these in advance, and yes, I can look at it on my computer at home, or in the office, I have huge monitors, but as you're going through and the butters come through with their questions, I want to see what this says about that, so I don't have time to go over to
No.
George and say.
Just don't ask me any questions, because I can't read
Okay,
it.
all right. I don't mean to take up too much time. I'm sorry.
Mr. Panisse.
Couple questions. Regarding snow removal, is Chipotle doing their own, or is you guys contract with the same contractor that Hood Plaza is using?
Dan,
We typically do our own, but if there is a synergy with the plaza contractor, we can contract with them to do our property as well. But we Chipotle are responsible for our snow removal.
Okay.
And this is John O'Connor. You're also going to be required to meet what's called the Snow Pro, which is a reduction of usage of salt, and you'll be held in a limited liability by reducing the salt on that. So that's in one of the land use books, I think. So we used to call it out separately, but it's automatically in there.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. the right turn off of Crystal, I was looking at the plan, it says authorized vehicles only, similar to what's down at Wolf Meow. See behind Wolf Meow, I don't know if that's the property you're talking about.
Randall, do you remember
They
if
have
that's the
a-
reference?
Yeah, similar to
They have a
that.
couple
and-
of speed bumps.
Yeah, and also, it's similar behind what used to be the Walgreens on Crystal Ave, and now it's Dollar
Oh,
General.
Dollar General.
Oh, yeah.
It's down in the back there, that's, that rear entrance, even though it goes around, that's mainly for trucks, deliveries, pickups, stuff
now I
like
know
that. Yeah. And that one, that has a similar,
Walgreens used to go behind.
that also has a similar dog leg as to this one. And, I mean, to Mr. Myers, this comes up at highway safety all the time. You can do whatever you can do. People will run over curbs to go where they want to go. You can't stop everything. I mean, they'll crash a guardrail to get where they want to
Look
go.
at the
It-
rotary.
It doesn't matter, yeah. So, you know,
I think what we really focused on was getting it as thin as possible, getting it as far away from the main axis as possible,
Yeah.
getting it angled as much as possible, and then putting as much signage. And again, like you said, I've worked on projects where they said you got to put a actual island down the road and people drive over it. I mean,
Yeah.
so our job here is to, you know, minimize it as much as possible and design to really deter it as much as possible.
I just have two more quick comments.
Yeah.
I just want to stress about the trash, the dumpster and everything, that I know the gentleman said, I forget his name, I apologize, that the crew members will clean up. I just want to make sure that, I want to stress that that gets cleaned up. And also want to, when I stated earlier that I've never seen fried food, it's because the one that I normally go to, one day I was in there, usually someone goes, picks it up for us, and they were taking the chips out of a bag. So I assumed that they were made off-site and brought in. I didn't realize they actually had Fridays in there, so.
You got to tell me which store that is, because we're going to fire those guys.
It's the airing of grievances.
No, I won't. But I will tell you offline, because I have a question I want to ask offline.
Any other further questions from the board members? Mr. LaRue, you have any concerns?
We have some additional items that we need to address on the plan that we had a meeting a month ago to, you know, related to grading, profiling the wall, getting more information about the wall, because that
has to be
that
certified,
still has
yeah.
to be, that'll still have to go to a product supplier with, they'll stamp the design, but we still want the engineer to do a profile, so we have a good plan to go off of for them to construct and stamp that design. There's other miscellaneous notes and drainage reworks just around the site related to where the existing exfiltration or infiltration system is that was put in many years ago, where the snow gets piled for their winter maintenance currently. So we just, there's a lot of items in there, and they're okay with that, and we've already seen some updates on the plan just this week, and also they have the Wright Pierce comments, and there are additional comments that I didn't have related to
probably overlap
details
a little bit. Yeah.
with the drive aisle is 11 feet, not 10.5 feet, things like that, sewer pipe sizes, drainage details, and I don't think it's going to be anything that's insurmountable. It should be fairly straightforward.
And we do have it as a condition.
Yeah, these two are conditions in the package.
And even the,
Mr. Chairman?
DES. Oh, I can't see him.
It disappeared.
Is it the beach?
David, you want to come on?
Yeah, I had my little electronic hand up.
Oh, we see two of you. Oh, hi. Should have voted
Lord.
twice.
That's not good. I have a couple of questions. One, if you would have the folks who operate the store clarify as to the function of the in-store and outdoor patio seating, how many seats there are, and whether that is only for people who pre-order on the app and decide to come in and pick up and eat there, or is it for people who just walk in and order at the product assembly line, if it were?
The seating, both indoors and outdoors, is for all customers, whether that be a customer who comes in and orders on the line at the store, or if they choose to come in and pick up a pre-order and sit down and eat at the store. It's open to all. The exterior seating is seasonal, obviously, it's New Hampshire. So we'll get, 3-4 months out of it. And then the patio dining furniture and everything is stored. That's about it.
So with respect to a question on the parking calculations, can you have the traffic engineer explain for me, given the total patron seating load and the required parking for employees, how does that match up with the proposed parking spaces?
Dave, you want to take that?
Yep, so according to the parking requirements that are based on the square footage and the max employees, that's 49 spaces. And we're showing 26 based on empirical data from Chipotle. And again, there's
Typically our stores, obviously there's a broad range depending on the site conditions and where there could be overflow parking. For example, we abut, the larger store behind us. There's a larger parking lot back there. Not that we're going to depend on that, but that's always a possibility of overflow. But historically, our stores, even when we negotiate deals and try and write leases, we're looking for a parking count of anywhere from 22 to 28 parking spots that we know historically works well with the amount of patrons we have coming through and how much parking we need for our employees. So that's how we landed it on the 26 spots for us.
Any further questions? Mr. Chase?
I have one for Mr. LaRue. On the cover waiver, what's your position on that?
We pushed and prodded to try to get as much cover as we could on the pipes, but the restrictions of the site and being able to fit the bioretention swale in and meet the outlets and inlet elevations was just very, very difficult to do. So we...
This comes up quite a bit, waivers from the 3 feet going down.
Well, it's because existing conditions.
Should we change the diameter of pipes that are on the ground, or make them a stronger pipe, or Schedule 80? Or?
Yeah, they're already just 12-inch pipes. Some of them are even less than that for the roof drains, and it's there's not a lot of change in elevation. It's fairly flat, and they have to bring fill in, I think, to build the site up a little bit as well, just to get proper slopes along the whole entire parking lot.
Yeah, really the challenge for us on redevelopments is when these were developed, it was catch basin, pipe, outlet, and now we're trying to incorporate treatment.
Right.
And the outlet's already set for no treatment, so it's a challenge for us. So like Mark said, we had to balance raising the site up versus getting things to the bioretention, balancing that with some areas where there's not ideal amount of coverage over pipe. So.
One more thing, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'm having difficulty letting this go. I'm sorry, but I'd like to see, get the board's opinion on making that a condition that the commodity dumpster have a separate containment system than the main dumpster enclosure.
What's the board's wishes? And is it doable?
It's
Back
from
to
what,
Chipotle.
yeah, I mean, Dan, you can say, but a self-containment area for the grease area within the dumpster pad.
I've never done one. I don't know if there's a manufactured solution for that, like you would see a drip pan for HVAC unit.
There is.
I don't know. We'd have to look into it.
There is. I see them all the time for fuel containers on construction sites, so.
We have one at work.
Yeah.
Okay.
For fuel.
These are retired firefighters.
Okay, oh,
Yeah.
he'll know.
Yeah, I'd
Okay.
really like to see that as a condition, to see that it's taken care of, especially where it's so close to the wetlands.
Understood.
We'll work with you, Dan, on that one.
Okay.
Sure.
Oh, yes, George.
Yeah, just a comment. Dan, this is George Sears from the Planning Office. To answer your question on going back to the snow removal, I go through the plaza like maybe once a week. Hood Plaza, the owners do have a company that does their plowing for them because they park their bucket trucks in this area where this is going at the far end of the ATM machine. So there is a company that they, if you want to reach out to them, I think you mentioned that's a possibility.
Yeah, we're working with a construction manager who's actually on the call as well, and he's our liaison with the landlord, so we can arrange all that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Seeing
Mr. Chairman, if there's no other questions, I'm going to start granting the waivers. I'm going to do them, I'm going to take each waiver by themselves.
Yep.
So, all right, so I move the grant waiver from LDCR Section 170-29K to allow less than the required 3-foot depth of cover over pipe in some areas of the site, as shallower cover is required in some areas to meet the existing inverts of the existing stormwater infrastructure. After review of the waiver request, the board finds specific circumstances relative to the plan or conditions of the land and such indicate that the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Grenice, a second by Mr. Myers. Starting with Randy.
Yes.
Mr. Healy.
Yes.
Mr. Grenice.
Yes.
Mr. Franhauer.
Yes.
Mr. Malaby.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
And Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
And chair votes yes on that one.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move to grant waiver from LDCR Section 170-63-4J to allow 26 parking spaces where the regulation required 49 spaces, as Chipotle maintains their business model and historic use only requires a 26 spaces. After review of the waiver request, the board finds the strict conformity of the regulations would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Grenice, second by Mr. Myers. Randy.
Yes.
Mr. Healy.
Yes.
Mr. Grenice.
Yes.
Mr. Franhauer.
Yes.
Mr. Malaby.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
And chair votes yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to grant the waiver from LDCR Section 170-64B1 to allow a dumpster to be located 17 feet from the property line where the regulation requires a distance of 25 feet as existing dimensions of the lot constrains the site. After review of the waiver request, the board finds specific circumstances relative to the plan and conditions of the land and such plan indicate that the waiver will probably carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Grenice, second by Mr. Myers. Randy.
Yes.
Mr. Healy.
Yes.
Mr. Grenice.
Yes.
Mr. Franhauer.
Yes.
Mr. Malaby.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
And Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move to grant waiver LDCR Section 170-64A3 to allow less than 1/3 green space as the existing conditions contain 27.7% green space, and the proposal results in a net increase of green space. After review of the waiver request, the board finds that specific circumstances relative to the plan or conditions of the land in such plan indicate that the waiver will probably carry out the spirit and intent of the regulation.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Grenice, a second by Mr. Myers. Mr. Chase.
Yes.
Mr. Healy.
Yes.
Mr. Grenice.
Yes.
Mr. Franhauer.
Yes.
Mr. Malaby.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
And chair votes yes. And Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
That passes.
All right, Mr. Chairman, keep on moving. Architectural design regulations. Move to find that pursuant to LDCR 170-85 that the application as presented demonstrates substantial compliance with the architectural design regulations. This property is located in a general commercial district and meets a medium-high level of compliance as outlined in Section 170-84.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Grenice, second by Mr. Myers. Mr. Chase.
Yes.
Mr. Healy.
Yes.
Mr. Grenice.
Yes.
Mr. Franhauer.
Yes.
Mr. Malaby.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
And Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
All right, Mr. Chairman, finding of facts. The board finds proposed plan provides safe and efficient vehicular and pedestrian access, and design and construction of the access ways and walkways are adequate to accommodate the anticipated volume of traffic proposed by the development. The board finds the proposed parking plan is adequate for the site and meets the parking density requirements for the use as noted by the waiver approved this evening. The board finds the landscape plan meets the intent of the regulations. The board finds the stormwater management as proposed is designed to control the post-development runoff so that it does not exceed pre-development runoff. The board finds utility construction standards are met and the property has a sufficient number of hydrants for the proposed use. The board finds exterior lighting, solid waste storage, and snow storage provisions and erosion sediment control provisions are adequate. Move to agree with the above noted findings of fact.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Grenice, we have a second by Mr. Myers. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. Feinhoff?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
And chair votes yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm on a roll. I just want to ask, Ms. LaRue, is there anything, any other comments from? Oh, thank you. All right, move pursuant to RSA 676:4I. Completed application with the following conditions. Comply with the Wright Pierce review letter dated June 15, 2023, and any subsequent reviews, subject to the owner's signature. Comply with any outstanding items as noted in correspondence dated May 22 and May 23, 2023, from the engineering coordinator. Subject to the on-site inspection by the town's engineer. Establish appropriate escrow as required to complete the project. Note approved waivers on the plan. Obtain a written approval from the planning director designee that the GIS disc is received and is operable and complies with LDCR section 170-61C, subject to the receipt of applicable state and local permits related to the project, i.e. AOT, wetland, building department, fire department, water, waste, driveways, etc. And I'm also going to add a condition of, and if anybody wants to reword this, please let me know, to have them put some sort of containment where they're gonna be storing their old grease, so that way it doesn't flow out into the road.
I'll second that.
Someone wanted to change wording.
Wording would be, it's usually called a commodities dumpster. The commodities dumpster / oil recycling dumpster shall have its own containment system independent of the main dumpster enclosure.
Okay, as stated as he says. And then conditions precedent, so there's no other conditions, right? So the conditions precedent shall be met within 6 months.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Grenice, second by Mr. Myers. Starting with Randy.
Yes.
Mr. Healy.
Yes.
Mr. Grenice.
I asked earlier, just to make sure that stuff's getting taken care of and address that the neighbor does, so I'm assuming, I just want to put that on the record, and I'm going to vote yes for the project.
Mr. Feinhoff.
Yes.
Mr. Malaby.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. You're good to go. Don't start anything within 30 days, because anybody that's aggrieved by this has 30 days to appeal it. So welcome to Derry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Any board comments?
Seeing none, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Roll call. All right, bye. Make sure you get that.